Crazy guys, I have the ZOTAC Zone with me, and this is probably one of the world's very first production units, which is very impressive. And I last saw this in Computex 2024, and even then that was not ready, and now it pretty much is. So this is how it looks today. I'm just going to be talking about the physical aspects and features and specs rather than just software and performance, because everything is still in testing phase. It's not finalized in some aspects, so running any benchmarks or whatsoever right now cannot represent the final product. So this is the ZOTAC Zone, and this is how it looks. It's running in Ryzen 8840U, which means it has integrated graphics like the Z1 Extreme, which is the Radeon 780M. So you get some RDNA 3 goodness in the process. The chip is pretty new. It came out this year with the same number of cores as the Z1 Extreme, which are 8 cores and 16 threads. It's also the latest generation chip with an NPU, and that means you get AMD Ryzen AI out of the box. And it's got capabilities of up to 16 TOPS if you're into using AI in your day-to-day life already. So yes, you got your standard analog sticks, you got 2 touchpads for navigation and all your various shortcut buttons, including a ZOTAC gaming button. And your D-pad is nice and clicky, and it's got the space to make more precise movements towards stuff like your top right, your top left, bottom right, bottom left, that kind of thing. And here there is a webcam for you to do video calls if that is your thing. These have adjustable stick tension, which means I can make all these micro adjustments to change the way these analog sticks feel, which are Hall effect by the way, to give me that more precise movement if I want to make even more micro adjustments. And to some people this kind of matters, and this kind of feature I only get to see it in more expensive controllers, and it's on a handheld, so that's kind of crazy that I get to make this type of granular adjustment even as a handheld gamer. And the top here are your trigger buttons, so your LB, LT, RB, RT, with a headphone jack and one USB 4 port here, as well as your volume rocker and your power button. So this power button boots up the system, and this is a battery indicator to tell you just roughly how much charge you have left, and of course the grill where the heatsink is blowing heat from, which is just this one singular section. And let's go to the back. So the back is also very ZOTAC in identity, with the logo branding right here and a customizable RGB strip at the back, which is something that I quite like. It also has an integrated kickstand, which is metal, because the rest of the body is just your standard handheld plastic. But this piece, which is very solid, is made of metal. So you can just plop it onto your desk, just like so, and you can start playing games. You have one M1 and M2 shortcut buttons, and these are very special. These are able to toggle between digital and analog triggers. So right now they sound like these, which are very standard triggers, and you flick those switches and these are how they sound now, and the travel is almost like nothing, see? But once I go back there, it goes all the way down. And at the bottom is very simple. There is a micro SD card slot, which is very good. It's really far away from the heatsink, and another USB 4 here. So you have a total of 2 USB 4 ports, and this makes it docking friendly. And I believe ZOTAC will be making a docking that will complement this. We're looking at a very gorgeous 7-inch 120Hz screen, and this is an AMOLED panel, which is very nice and very colorful. And you can do everything just using the touchpads, and you've always just wanted a system where it's like more Windows based natively, but you wanted that touchpad. Well, here you go. This is something that I know you will enjoy. So the most important part right now is the other specs, which are the memory. So this is using 16 GB of LPDDR5 RAM with a mega transfer rate of 7,500 mega transfers per second, which is pretty standard in the industry. And part of that will become video memory, and the ZOTAC Zone defaults at 3 GB of video memory, and I'm yet to see the software or BIOS option to allow me to change that, but that's for another day. As for power, it will be charged using a 65-watt charger, which is provided in the box, and it has a 48.5 watt-hour battery. And from there, you are able to get a maximum TDP of 30 watts, which is kind of like an industry standard at the moment. And as for the other side of the memory, it's a 512 gig M.2 SSD, which you can upgrade on your own later on. Let's see what these buttons do. So this button is the home button, which means you're able to minimize and maximize whatever is going on the screen. So in example, for example, this is the ZOTAC 1 launcher, which is still in testing phase. As you can see, it's only for testing purposes. and it's a very general looking dashboard with everything from your battery indicator to what games you have loaded on, and even suggestions of what type of popular games you can buy and download. So from here you can see your library and see what platforms that you can download and sign in on. So it will tell you whether you've installed it or not, and you have a media section if you want to check your screenshots or even your save gameplay videos. So that's about it there. And the button next to the home button will give you, your status notification taskbar, so you can adjust things like your brightness, your volume, your microphone volume, your pickup volume, turning on and off your Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, and there's even a section here where you can press to force display a keyboard for you to use if you don't have a keyboard connected. So from there you can even see your resolution and what kind of refresh rate you're running on, and you can make on-the-fly adjustments from this dashboard here to see what kind of performance you need for the type of games you want to play. So you can adjust CPU and GPU clocks and your thermal power limit, and of course your boost mode for your CPU, which you can change just by tapping like that, which is pretty fast and useful, and it's very, very easy to look at. And from here you can press the ZOTAC logo button here to bring up another menu to customize every single aspect, from stuff like your fan curves, whether you wanted to set on auto or manual. And it's a very, very simple solution where you can just drag a slider for the fans to spin accordingly, or you can adjust it using a curve, which a lot of people in the handheld community prefer to use because it's simply more granular. And for performance, yeah, so this is pretty much the full menu. What I told you is now maximum thermal power limit of 30 watts, and you can even see what type of CPU count you have here for you to utilize all those cores if that's something you want to do, and energy performance preference, so you can distribute the power between your CPU and your GPU, which is something that some people will want to do. When people want to play games that are more CPU intensive, you can drag it more towards giving the priority to your CPU and vice versa. And from here you can even see stuff like your controller, where you can adjust between gamepad and desktop settings, which is a pretty standard affair, and Spectra, which is pretty much the lighting mode for you to adjust the light bar that is located at the back. And for now there are just 5 presets, so you can change it to breathing mode, which will just light power up and power down the lighting, and you can adjust those colors like that, just like that. Very, very straightforward, very, very easy to use. And you can check your disk space to see just how much memory you have left after installing all those games, and it can also just tell you just how much memory each game is taking up on your total 512 gig disk space. So if I was to give any critique about this, I would say that the ZOTAC Zone was created to be a hybrid between like a Steam Deck that's just Windows based with very, very precise controllers for you to micro adjust on the fly with your touchpads. You got a webcam over there, you got your volume rocker and your power button, and changing the analog stick sensitivities between going regular and going ultra precise, which is also known as digital and analog. This gives the user a lot of freedom to customize the way they like it. So that's about it. That's my first impressions of the ZOTAC Zone. I'm Zen the Geek, and I'll see you guys in the next video.